Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a Stabby chaos coordinator, and one chief shenanigator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Matthew C. Lucas, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home. And this is the first one in a while where I forgot to ask the pronunciation, but it's okay because yours is easy.
Hey, it's Matt Lucas. Sounds like it's spelled. Really great to be here. Thanks for having me on, JR.
And while he goes by Matt, if you want to find his books, you got to go Matthew C. because there's an actual Matthew Lucas who writes speculative fiction, but it's not him.
Yeah, it's not me. He's the other guy.
Yeah, the other guy. I'm sure you're cooler, though.
He's good people too, I'm sure, but my books are better.
And you're not biased at all.
Not at all.
Your mother told you they're the best. I know that's how this works.
That's right. And she was right.
Before we get started, we do have to do the religion question because we are the Blast and Blaze podcast. Are you ready for this, sir?
Hit me.
All right. Since you've come on before, we've asked the OG ones. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So, Stargate, Babylon 5, or Battlestar Galactica?
I got to go with Battlestar Galactica. I loved it had just the right blend of cheesiness, sci-fi, fun, and the Cylons were awesome. You
looking at the OG one or the reboot that they did in the early aughts?
Oh, I'm sorry. Everything you asked me, I'm just going to assume it's OG because I'm a crusty old Gen Xer. So yeah, the original one.
I didn't mind
the sideburns and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind the reboot. I actually used the Starbuck as an example of where you can mix it up and do it in a way that adds to the plot instead of just checks a box. So, like, right now in the original, if you remember, Adama and in Starbuck were like family friends. He was friends with the brothers, and in the series, in both of them, the younger brother had died before they took this great journey, this odyssey, as it were. In the reboot that they did, they made Starbuck a woman. She was the younger brother's flight instructor. And because she loved him and he was trying to live up to his mom and dad and the expectations, she passed him even though he wasn't quite ready, thinking, well, he'll get ready, as the career goes forth, right? He was good enough kind of thing. And then because he wasn't ready, he ended up dying. And so the relationship as the former fiance, or I don't think she married him. I think it was just fiance, but now her relationship with the family adds a lot of depth in the emotional side of things. It wasn't there. It wasn't as campy. And so it worked. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for campy. I think there's room for that too. I love the cheesy C-level, B-level movies. But I think if you're going to change something in a movie, when you redo it, there's got to be a reason other than I want to, fit whatever demographics you're trying to hit. Like, it's got to make sense from a plot point for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a kid when Battlestar Galactica came out. I was watching it for the bzz bzz and the bang bang. I mean, that was
absolutely. And like I said, camp has its place. I just use it as an example. If you're going to change something, do it for the right reasons. And it
absolutely.
In that one, it did not feel like they were checking boxes. It felt like it added to the plot. Now, Battlestar Galactica was a lot more grimdark, the reboot, than the original, so it's a different audience, but the change kind of worked. For me, that's an example I go to of how to do it right. Whereas sometimes people change it just so they can say, we did the thing. But I don't know. I'm with you. I really like the cheesy of the original. I really need to go rebuy it. I've got the box set for the first one. But it's like, instead of breaking it up by episodes so you can like pace yourself, watch an episode or two a night and then go about your life, they released the DVDs in just 2 or 3 hour blocks. So you'd have to kind of know where you are to remember. And it makes watching it without one huge, however many hour binge session, like, it's difficult. So I'm going to have to reorder it where they break it up by episode, I think.
I forget what it was. It was like a few months back, but it just happened to come on, or I was streaming or something. But I watched like the very first kind of launch episode of the very beginning of the series, and I just remember thinking like, my God, this is kind of low budget. I remember this being a lot cooler than it is.
And the question is, was it low budget for the time, or are we comparing it to modern cinema? And I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I was a kid.
I mean, in in fairness, it was made for TV, and for the time, it was probably pretty cool. But just watching it now, just holy crap.
Well, it's also got the same problem that, like, remember, I think it was the Nixon one. One of them's when they first went to the color TV, right? Like, what was good enough for one, and then, you know, like when they started changing the TV, suddenly the old Space Invader movies, you can see the string holding the spaceship, right? So I wonder how much of that is the old style when you take the older ones and you're playing it without reimagining it on modern television screens with the 4K. Maybe we're losing some of what, you know, the movie magic hid the first time.
Yeah, and well, you know, and there's this really weird kind of sweet spot to hit in terms of that technology advancement and using cool effects. Because I remember one of the things that I really, really loved about the old Godzilla movies, you know, the ones that were big, like, you know, 60s, 70s or whatever, was the fact that watching it as a kid, I felt like, you know what, if I got some buddies together and we just put some stuff out of the garage, we could make that movie. You know, like the movie has to be much better than that level, or it has to be that level. But anything in between, I feel like it's just kind of missing out on me.
Yeah, one of the things that I like is you see when they used to do the scaled models, because you could get that effect on various things when they like blow things up with practical effects, but it was like a, you know, whatever scale model. Seeing them make the models is cool, but there's a video of one of the guys building the models walking through the city. I think it's Tokyo that Godzilla destroys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's walking through this model version of Godzilla where the buildings are slightly smaller than him. The skyscrapers, and the caption is, why didn't he just fight Godzilla? He's bigger. There's just something charming about those old the way they used to do movie sets.
Oh yeah, I love that. Like just literally just threw firecrackers at things and call it a day.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's the nostalgia factor, but some things just don't age as well. I grew up, you know, when I'd go to my grandma's house, I'd play her old Atari because that was there. It wasn't new when I played it, but it wasn't also super old either. It was, you know, like Nintendo had already come out. So right. the Atari was old tech, but I remember having so much fun playing that with my cousins at my grandma's house. And so I bought you could buy this one box that had all the games preloaded and you just plug it into your TV.
Yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's called an emulator. I think it's the word.
Yeah,
I played those with my kids, and we ended up giving up. And I'm like, I seem to remember this was a lot more fun.
You played the Atari with the old joystick?
Yeah.
I have carpal tunnel because of that. I'm convinced.
Yeah, we did the Space Invaders and Leapfrog and Frogger, and I remember like my cousins and I would go to town on that, and then when I tried to play it with my sons, and it was just like, oh, this isn't as cool. Let's go back to Halo.
Lame, yeah.
Right, let's go back to Halo. It's cooler. So, all right. So, because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Dragonheart, the 1996 movie, Reign of Fire out of 2002, or Dragon Slayer from 1981.
So I want to throw you a curveball on this one, JR, because you said in pre-show that I could change things up a little bit. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to stick with the 80s, but instead of Dragon Slayer, I'm going to say Dragon's Lair, the video game that was big in the 80s, the one that ate up all your money and was impossible. You remember that?
I do. So I've said, the ironic thing is the old arcade I used. Go ahead.
I was going to say I found online somewhere someone had strung together the entire anime. This is, by the way, for listeners who are wondering what the heck we're talking about. Dragon's Lair was an animated cartoon style video game where you would have to react, move the joystick to the left or right, press the sword button. You were this guy, Dirk the Daring or something, and you're trying to rescue a princess from a dragon. And it's kind of like a dungeon crawl sort of adventure. And it was pre-drawn, pre-animated cartoon stuff that you would make your guy do. And it was impossible. It was like it would just eat up all your money. And the worst part was it was at the time when everything was a quarter, it was a 50-cent game. So you would blow through all your money after 10 or 15 seconds of trying to play. Well, someone had posted online the entire cartoon start to finish, showing him finishing the quest, and it was amazing. It was like an unlocked piece of life triumph that I finally got to live.
So it came out in the arcades in '83.
Okay.
And then they ended up with Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp, which was a I think Pixar. No, that would have been Pixar. Laserdisc game in the '90s came out. There was trying to think. There was a Game Boy version, Dragon's Lair: The Legend, that I played, and then that came out in '91. There was Dragon's Lair, also the original one. That came out in '90. That was for, I'm trying to think, it was a video game, but I don't, for NES, Nintendo's NES system. They had the '93. It came out again in, I'm drawing a blank of what that system was. The computer. It was also an Atari.
Really?
Yeah. So it went across multiple platforms.
Did not know any of this. JR, if anyone was going to know about that, I figured it would be you.
Well, I played it too, but then Microsoft has Dragon's Lair 3D Return to the Lair, which is another arcade game that came out in '93. And I'll link to the YouTube because I actually found it when you mentioned it. That's how I knew about the Game Boy, because I didn't remember that one. I will link to the all through the video that they've got in the show notes. But we actually had a Flipper McCoy's that was just a chain in the Hampton Roads area. There's a bunch of them. That was an arcade. And the last one that was left that's near my mom's is now closed. But in its spot of the same building on the same footprint is now a hookah shop. And I'm like, it's almost like they knew most of their target demographic that used to play the arcades there. You know what I mean? Like, lead it into the stereotypes.
Yeah.
I spent so much of my money. I'd like go hunting for cans that I could recycle just so I'd get more quarters. And kids just don't understand. Like, you just don't hit restart. You had to have money to play.
You had to put skin in the game. Absolutely.
And then there was the ping pong. Not the ping pong. What's the where you hit the flapper and it hits the ball around? That's not ping pong, is it?
I know what you're talking about. No, it's
pinball. There we go.
Yeah, we're both writers. We couldn't remember the word pinball.
Well, I mean, there's a proper name for it, but anyway. But yeah, Dragon's Lair was a lot of fun. So I'm.
It
with
was
you
awesome.
there.
It was awesome. There's in Tarpon Springs, Florida, which is kind of near where I live. It's just one county over. They have they call it a museum. But it's a bunch of old video games, and you pay $20 and you can play all these old video games as much as you want. And one of the games they had was Dragon's Lair. And so I spent like a half an hour just solid. I burnt through the equivalent of $80. And I still couldn't get more than like 2 minutes into the game. I think it was just, they deliberately made it impossible.
Yeah, they had it was on GameCube too. I didn't even remember that system. That one didn't last very long.
No, it didn't. I mean, it jogged a memory when you mentioned that, but yeah, no, I haven't heard of that one forever.
Yeah, I don't even know who made that. I wonder if you could get that on Steam or something where you could actually play it. That you can get the Dragon's Lair 3D Return to the Lair. Ubisoft is selling it for the XP platform as a downloadable game.
Well, to all your listeners and viewers, you should definitely check out that clip because it's something.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I don't know. I had fond memories on that one too, and it ate up some of my money. So, all right. Because you answered your favorite dinosaur last time, I'm going to ask you instead, sir, what is your favorite zoo animal? Probably
an otter. They're just fun.
Okay. That is not something I've ever had anyone say before. Is it something you have in the wild near you, or just, when you're literally at the zoo? Because we say zoo animal and people answer stuff that might not even be in the zoo. It's just an animal, and that's okay. Like, there's no wrong answer. It's just worded that way. But you said an otter.
Just because they've got a couple of them at the zoo. It's an aquarium near us, and just Yeah, they just have these otters, and they have this big giant tank, and they just swim around and play all the time. They're just fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. All right. Because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer Knuckle Dragon Troglodytes. I'm going to ask you, sir, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee, black.
Like
Nothing
your
in it.
soul. Dun, dun, dun.
Like my soul, exactly.
Okay. So obviously, like, you come up growing up, liking speculative fiction. Do you have any like foundational memories for you of how you discovered your love of the speculative fiction genre?
Well, just growing up, was surrounded by books more than anything. So, reading was just a huge part of my upbringing. Both my parents revered the written word. I think probably the gateway drug for me was at some point, The Hobbit got assigned when I was in elementary school, and I think that was the first run in where I just realized that, wow, this reading thing, it doesn't have to be a slog. It could actually be about something really cool. And there's wizards and goblins and dragons, and I just went from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you decide to transition from liking to consume the content, to read the books, to play the games and such, to decide you wanted to tell your own stories in that space?
I think I always wanted to be able to write, and not even to tell stories. Like I wasn't really a storyteller in terms of like talking to people, but again, that written word thing was just, it was hollowed, and I felt this kind of pull to do it, and I was really, really fortunate that I had an English teacher, probably like 7th grade, and I still remember to this day. But I was trying to do a writing assignment, and she handed it back to me, and I got an A in it, and she just wrote this little throwaway note. Probably didn't even think much of it, but she put in there something along the lines of, "Matt, if you don't become a writer one day, it'll be a shame." And that little bit of encouragement was just enough to keep me always wanting to try to work on writing. So that's something I've always worked on, both in my professional career, and also as this hobby of mine that kind of consumes all of my hobby time of speculative fiction writing.
Okay.
So I know it's kind of the stock answer since I was a kid, but it's true. I mean, it's just since I was a kid, it's something I've been felt pulled to do.
I always planned on writing, but I thought it would be in academia. Obviously, I didn't plan on getting hurt in the war. But I grew up wanting to be a lawyer. I watched Matlock as a kid, and I thought that getting paid to argue with people sounded like a lot of fun. Obviously, it's more nuanced in real life, but as a little kid, like, you mean I could get paid to argue with people and no one's going to ground me? And so I had a feel. And then, I grew up under the shadow of the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah.
If the glove don't quit, you must have quit. Or no, if the glove don't quit.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to argue against that guy. And then he died before I even made it to my bachelor's degree, the lawyer. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but
well, there's Johnny Cochran. There's
Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, he had a whole dream team working for him.
Yeah, it was Johnny Cochran was the one I used to want to argue against, because he was so bombastic when you'd see him on the press conferences. And I'm like, that would just be fun. And then, of course, so I always plan on writing, but I figured it'd be like academic stuff, because, it's if you're in the academic field, is publish or perish, right? Like, you got to constantly churn out more academic articles. And so I never really thought about writing until the therapy at the VA. But I always read. So did you grow up, if you liked Dragon's Lair, did you read any of the Lone Wolf books? The Choose Your Adventure?
Yeah. God, yeah, I remember those. So those were almost like a really cool bridge between Dungeons and Dragons and Choose Your Own Adventure, where it was an illustrated sort of Choose Your Own Adventure style book, but that combined dice rolling and stats in with it. Those were cool. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, there was the other one. It was it was like Kai was the main character. My kids I ended up keeping them. I was a Lone Wolf, I think.
Yeah, no, I vividly remember that one. The artwork was really good too.
Yeah, I kept the whole series that because I collected them. I had all of them, and I passed those on to my sons so they could experience the love as well. But there was a series of like in the 80s. I remember reading a lot of those choose your own adventure, and they weren't all fantasy. Some of them were space. Some of them it was speculative fiction in that you had the creatures or the time travel, and it was a lot of fun to explore, and you had to feel like you were in control too.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. That was brilliant. I mean, that was a really cool innovation in reading.
I would love to write one just because I love to read them, but I picture the people that write them. It's like that old meme where like the guy's standing at the wall pointing and there's red string going everywhere like a serial killer. That's how I imagine that it looks like when they plan it, because I don't know how they keep that straight in their head.
You have to be the type that really enjoys puzzles, I would imagine.
Yeah, could you imagine editing that? Because you have to not just edit it word for word, you have to edit it by stream to make sure it follows each of the paths independently before it's all merged together.
Well, and to make sure that everyone leads to an ending, that you're not stuck in a circle on any. Oh yeah, no, I mean like per page, the amount of brain work that you got to put into editing, that would be a lot.
Yeah, I actually did some research because at one point in time I thought I'd write those when I first started. For a while, there was a couple in the romance, the white shoes, I think they call it, the genre where the women have like multiple romantic partners and they end up, just are okay with it. Or where there's a love triangle and you get to decide which way the love interest goes. There was some like that for the more mature, steamier side of romantic writing. But for whatever reason, it didn't seem to take off because they're not around anymore. I mean, I'm sure those books didn't get unpublished, but like nobody else is doing it. Because if someone could write like a template where you could just fill in the various paths, so you had to write to the template, but you could tell cool stories. Like, I don't know, I'd give it a shot just for the fun of it. I had so many hours spent reading those as a kid.
Oh yeah, well, and you know what made them too was the artwork. They always did a good job hiring illustrators on those.
And I always cheated. Like I'd look ahead. And because with the lone wolf ones, at least you actually had to like roll a dice or see if your plus weapon beat their plus weapon. And so sometimes I probably died, but I didn't because I cheated. But it was so much fun.
So did your math get a little fuzzy sometimes when you were doing those odds?
I mean, like, I grew up with the joke, don't blame me, I'm public school math, right? That was my get out of jail. But I was reading, so who cared, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so I don't know. Those were always fun for me. Did you watch any of the shows that were out? Like I don't know if you're old enough for the Dungeons and Dragon cartoon.
Absolutely.
I've watched it, but I watched it later.
Absolutely. No, I was riveted. That was the golden era of cartoons in my childhood, was when Dungeons and Dragons came out with a Saturday morning cartoon, and I was there at the TV front and center when it came on. Oh yeah, that was huge.
For me it was the Last Unicorn and the Hobbit cartoons. I don't know what that style of art where it's like the kind of pastel look.
The Rankin Bass
yeah
ones, yeah.
That was
the guy that got to sing for it was Glenn something or other. That was amazing.
Yeah, like I said, for me, so I grew up kind of exposed to all of it because that's what was out there. Although you had to be, your parents were a lot more selective back then because some of those covers, let's just say they wouldn't pass decency nowadays as far as what was on those covers for art. If you remember some of the 80s fantasy art where body parts were hanging out.
Yeah. No, that was, well, they knew their demographic.
Absolutely. But yes, I grew up with that stuff too. It was so much fun. So, okay, so we talked about how you got into writing. Before we move on and we start talking about the book that brought us here, if you got invited, like, okay, so what would be the IP, the franchise that if they invited you to write for them, you would stop everything?
Ooh. I because I love a challenge, I would totally take on Game of Thrones. I would love to be the guy who brought all the strands together and nailed the landing, and not obviously not the way they did it in the show, but like actually came up with the final book, 2 books, 3 books, however many it would take to bring it all to a final conclusion that was satisfied, like where you felt like, yes, that's how you end a series. I would take that on. I mean, if hey, George R.R. Martin, if you're listening.
So for me, like, I'm definitely stopping everything if Stargate calls.
Okay.
Because I loved that series. I loved all of them, even the misaligned or the poorly judged Stargate universe. I loved it. Terra Nova. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, the dinosaur show that Fox Entertainment murdered. But Fox Entertainment's where good shows go to die. So like but Terra Nova was a good one. Primeval, I don't know if you ever watched that one. It was about dinosaurs as well. It was.
I see a theme here.
I love dinosaurs, but I like other things too. But like, so for Primeval, at least, it was that what we would call cryptids were actually time anomalies that were letting ancient creatures from the past walk through. And so Primeval was about this organization that would find the anomalies and sort of push the dinosaurs back through the other side.
That's pretty cool.
And it wasn't that it wasn't popular. Well, that was one of those ones that just because of when it was filmed, there's Primeval and then Primeval New World. So Primeval set in the UK and then Primeval New World's Canada. That one was shut down purely because of the cost to continue making it was more than they were earning, but it was still wildly popular. It was just almost like it was an idea that was too early. Yeah, it was an idea that was too early for the tech available, and they just kind of pushed through because it was so popular. But that one was a lot of fun. They even get one scene where they're out, the anomaly's underwater, and so they end up going in a nuclear powered submarine through an anomaly back to the Cretaceous, and they like go fire nuclear warheads at ancient space sharks. Or not space shark, ancient like dino sharks that are like massive enough they could swallow the whole sub. Which was kind of cool. The idea of like,
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's all. I watched it on Prime. I don't know if it still is on Amazon Prime, but it was so cool. And then of course Fallout, if you're familiar with the game.
Okay, say again.
Fallout.
No, that's not ringing a bell.
It's a 1950s inspired nuclear post-apocalyptic world, and then it's everyone's coming out of like bunkers, which were the main characters, but there are people that lived up top too. So it's got the video games, it's got the series on Amazon Prime, where there's like a live action movie. It's just so much fun. The lore is pretty cool as well. So it's what the future would have looked like if you let the 1950s show us what they thought with like the nuclear cars. So like one of my hobbies in the game, if I've got time to kill, I'll find the dead cars that are just laying around and shoot the engine block just to watch them, go supernova, so to speak, because it's a nuclear engine in the various cars. And then, are you familiar with the Elder Scrolls?
I've heard the name, but I've never actually. No.
So Elder Scrolls is like Skyrim and the Morrowind and the others in that franchise. There's more I'm forgetting, but it's a fantasy one.
Okay.
It's an open world RPG concept.
You have given me much to look into, JR.
Yeah, I don't know. Those are mostly dead properties. Well, Fallout's not, and Elder Scrolls, I don't know, they might do more. But my favorites are the ones that like I have comfort memories of, right? So like,
yeah.
But that means that there's no one going to call us to bring it back.
Right, because they had their day. Yeah,
right. Like G.I. Joe, I like that, but I don't know that the plot. I know we're probably going to get me hate mail for this, but I don't know that the plot was deep enough that it gives you a lot of room. Some of those 1980s cartoons, like they were very one-dimensional in the plot structure because their target audience was kids.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you're going back into it, you'd almost be easier just writing your own, homage to it rather than try to write in the actual IP. If you're going to do it,
Cobra is still an existential threat.
Okay, so you think there's room in GI Joe to write?
Absolutely. It's just all new weapons.
I watched the movie that they did a couple years ago, and I just wasn't not. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I wasn't really impressed. I never read the comics, but I never grew up reading comics, so that's not a dig or one way or another. It just comics weren't my thing. I had to make myself learn to appreciate art once I started writing because I was looking for book covers. Because when you're colorblind, nothing looks the same to you. And I actually had an art teacher in elementary school tell me when they found out I was colorblind, art just wasn't for me, so why bother? And I listened and I kind of moved on. And so I never really got into comics. I prefer the written word.
I did a little bit into the comics. I mean, I remember having some of the GI Joe comics, some of the original Transformers comics as well, and the Punisher. Those are my favorites.
Punisher, I like the concept, but I watched the movie. Not like obviously I didn't read the comics.
The movie filmed in my hometown, Tampa.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, little known fact about that, but there's all sorts of cool landmarks in there that if you're from Tampa, you ooh and ah, and you get past the. It was an okay movie. I wouldn't say it was bad. It was okay.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. Like I said, I don't mind cheesy, but RoboCop was a fun one too. But I don't know that there's a lot of meat on the bone to go back to as far as I think the movie did what it needed to.
Yeah.
As far as I don't know that there's a lot of depth in the world to go back to that you couldn't just create on your own. Whereas like if I'm going to go into someone else's world like that, I want there to be enough that there's room to explore that wouldn't be easier just to build my own thing, you know?
Yeah,
So
no, it's an interesting question, right? Because there are so many different IPs out there now, and there's so many different tastes. So you kind of gotta pick the one that I don't know, the one that has the most resonance with you, but might also like reach out to other people as well.
yeah, I think if you're going to do it, the one thing I'm looking forward to is a lot of cool IPs are coming up with the. I forget the name of the law, and you might know because I know we talked in the pre-show. You're a little bit aware of legal stuff. When things come on where anybody can write in the IP, like some of the original Sherlock Holmes, when they hit the open market, there's a word for that.
Public domain.
Public domain. There we go. That is my TBI kicking in because sometimes I forget words. But like some of the cool stuff that's coming out of public domain, I'm curious to see what people do with it.
Yeah. Well, the first thing they did with Winnie the Pooh apparently was turn it into a horror concept, which
blood and honey. I actually thought it was funny. Like I didn't watch it because I don't really watch horror, but I just thought it was kind of cool to see like the reimagining of the 100 Acre Woods.
And apparently it took like all of a week for that to come together. So
that is kind of cool though. Like I can appreciate. Well, if you knew it was coming up, you could probably film in advance and launch on the day it was live.
True.
Because if you know something like is coming up. But some of the old radio dramas that are coming up could be cool. Like the people used to listen to back in the day where they do the fireside chats. They'd sit and they'd listen to, various. Dick Tracy was one.
The Shadow. Green Hornet.
What was the other one? You said Green Hornet?
The Green Hornet. I think that was one. I remember. Cracker Barrel had some of these that you could rent. This is really dating myself, but the Cracker Barrel restaurants would have this thing where you could.
Well, so yeah, you could. What you would do is you would buy the first it was cassettes and then it was DVD CDs. You would buy it, but then when you got to the next Cracker Barrel after you returned it, you'd get like 2/3 of your money back. If you never returned it, they're not out. If you did return it, you get your money back. When I was traveling to visit colleges when I was in high school, that's how I made it through those trips. Is I was doing the movies or some movies. I was doing the books on cassette.
Yeah, but they would offer a lot of times. They would offer like the old timey radio shows. Trying to hit the nostalgias.
I missed those. So I did a lot of the like Clive Cussler. There's a few others that were out there that are in that kind of space. Tom Clancy, obviously. But Tom Clancy only works to a point because his books were so long, like you wouldn't get through one on a round the country trip.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Hunt for Red October would. I mean, that could keep you going up several continents.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm trying to think of like who else would be. There was another one, Matt something, I think was the guy's name. I'm drawing a blank on the authors, but yeah, I remember reading a whole bunch of them. I read one that was kind of cool. That was the concept of they basically some of the elephants for Hannibal didn't make it across the Alps, and so what the concept was that some of them had been discovered, because of global warming was the theme in the 90s when this was written, or the early aughts too. And so, but they found out that we knew in the era they were using germ warfare in ways that we didn't think was possible, mixing and matching things, putting it on blankets or in liquids to throw at the enemy. And so that's his take on how we got vampire lore, was because they mixed rabies and some other poison.
Really? Okay.
So it was a lot of cool stuff under the guise of like historical like treasure hunt kind of books.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool. I mean, I don't know that I buy that's the origin of the vampire lore, but it was still a cool plot point that they were like digging up elephants that had been there since Hannibal crossed the Alps.
Yeah, no, I mean that if nothing else, it kept you entertained while you're looking at colleges.
Yes, it absolutely did. So anyway, we have been meandering all over the ghosts of our childhood speculative fiction. We actually have a panel coming up. I'll get with you offline. We're going to call it Intergenerational Trauma, the speculative fiction that touched us or something. I got to come up with, well, no, touched us. That has a bad connotation. I've got to come up with a better title, but that's one of those ones. The concept is the stuff we read as kids that scarred us that we, of course, then want to pass on to the next generation.
I want to be on that panel. That like, sounds awesome.
Like Old Yeller, Bridge to Terabithia, when Ajax passes away too soon, I know, but like there are moments that are foundational to our love of literature. So anyway, all right, we're gonna pause for a moment, dear listener, where we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're gonna talk about the book that brought us here. And hopefully we'll do a better job at staying on target.
They came in peace, or so the aliens said. Here are 18 examples of their lies. Venture into the unknown with us. Who is out there? What will they want from us? Join us in the adventure of First Contact. Each story explores a different facet of aliens meeting humanity. Buy Contact This, a First Contact anthology, and read some of the industry's best storytellers today.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And with that, we're going to throw the cover up. We brought you here to talk about Space Station Halcyon, now under new management. So first, for the families amongst us, what would you say the rating of this novel is?
Ooh, well, the language gets really salty in places. So I would say for language, rated R. For kind of, there's some violence too. The violence level though is really more PG-13, but the language is pretty salty.
Okay. Is there gore or
No.
Extreme violence?
I mean, there's some violence, but it's nothing like a Joe Abercrombie book or anything. You're not gonna feel the need to talk to a therapist, because of what you read about some battle scene. I mean, there's some violence, there's some shoot up stuff, some physical fights, that kind of thing. But it's a sci-fi comedy, which the harshest part is probably the language.
Okay, what kind of comedy? Because you got barracks humor, you've got highbrow humor, you've got raunchy humor. Like, how would you classify the humor in your book?
So I would liken this to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and in fact, one of the opening quote blurbs recommendations which they're all made up, by the way. Space Station Halcyon is what you get if Monty Python, Futurama, and the Muppets three-way to Love Child and set it loose in a movie theater.
Okay, I'm guessing you read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when you were a kid.
Got it. That's the vibe that this is aiming for.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, what was the inspiration? Like, how did you come up with the concept?
So this was one of those kind of crock pot things that just sort of little bits and pieces got thrown in there and sort of stewed and stewed and stewed. This is the first sci-fi that I've ever written. I've done a lot of fantasy, different blends of fantasy. Sci-fi has never been a big thing that I was into, but I always wanted to try my hand at it. And I always loved the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, the 4 books in the trilogy, because I just love that sense of humor. Doing humor in writing is a real challenge, though, and the writers in your audience will appreciate this. Comedy is a much harder thing to do on the page, or even it's even hard when it's just if you're doing audio book. Although you do have a few more tools in the toolbox. But usually we think of comedy, we get almost all of our senses involved, and at a minimum we get to see something. We get visuals, we can see facial expressions, all that kind of stuff. You don't get to work with any of that when you're trying to write it out. So that's I really wanted to tackle kind of 2 challenges, was to see if I could do sci-fi and to see if I could make it pretty funny. And I definitely succeeded. It is definitely sci-fi. I hope I made it pretty funny.
Okay. Funny is a good goal to have. Yeah, I wrote exactly one comedy, I think a novella. I think it was like 50,000 words. And when you have to layer meaning for everything to make the jokes land, and hit people at various levels, it is so time consuming to write. Like, hats off to the people that can do it. But at the end of that, I was like, yeah, I'm never doing this again.
Well, the thing too is, I think when you set out to write, if you set out to write a comedy, you have to manage expectations as well. So you can do a half-hour comedy special and it just be nothing but joke after joke, sight gag after sight gag. Yeah, it's really hard to carry a story along like that. So I call it a comedy. I mean, it's an adventure story that has a lot of humor in it. But really what you got to focus on first is telling a good story. And then hopefully it's one where you got lots of parts where you can try, kind of airdrop in some gags to make people laugh.
Okay. Was there a reason that you switched from what you were writing to go the comedy route?
Yeah, well, it was one of those. It was interesting. Some of my other stuff. My very first book was this big, thick, grimdark and there was nothing. There's not even a smile in that. I mean, it was punishingly brutal, and I never wanted to do that again. It was too bleak, too dark. So in some of my other stuff, I would get comments from people that like, hey, there was this one scene that was. It made me laugh out loud. It was pretty funny. And it was more like a kind of a droll sort of sense of humor that I was trying to break up the tension a little bit with. And I just thought those are the parts that for me were kind of the most fun to write. And it seems to be that, the feedback I was getting it was also the most entertaining. So I just decided, like, what the heck? I want to write kind of a short adventure sci-fi book, and I'm just going to lean in and try to just have fun with this thing. Make it absurd, make it silly. Set up some miscommunication, some gags, and see what happens.
So how long is this novel?
Well, it's really more of a novella. So this is like 35,000 words. So it's a quick read. I would liken this to it literally, I set out to write it in the way that a 1-hour TV show episode would be. So it's set up very much like an hour-long TV episode.
So is this, you label this as book one? I'm assuming then that there's going to be a string of these that come out.
You got it. That's the plan. I'm already working on the second one, which is Space Station Halcyon. Come and get it. This one, it's the it's the setup, basically, to get your listeners some context on this. The storyline here, it's told in the first person. It's from the point of view of a guy named Joey Mumbai, who is he calls himself a professional man of chance. Basically, he's a gambler grifter. He gets in upside down with a sected mob boss, which is like an insect kind of alien that he owes a lot of money to. And his the mob's enforcers have just picked him up. They're roughing him up pretty bad. In fact, they're about to kill him, but they just happen to discover right as they're about to finish him off that he does have one asset that he can pay off the huge gambling debt that he owes, but only he can't really do anything with it. And it's a space station. It's called Space Station Halcyon. It's this junk heap wreck of a station that's in the Upsilon system at the farthest edge of the galaxy. And Joey's father, who was much more of a straight-laced businessman, he's passed away. He left it to Joey in something called an inalienable deed, which is a made-up thing in this galaxy. But basically, it's, here is this property, you can never get rid of it. All right, so he has this property, he can't sell it, he can't borrow any money off of it, and so the mob boss says, I think we can come to a business arrangement here. And the business arrangement that he offers to Joey as he's being strangled is that if he goes out and works Space Station Halcyon as a front for this mafia, then he can slowly work off the debt that he owes. And that's the setup for all sorts of wacky adventures. And the first adventure, now under new management, is when he goes out and he learns all about his new space station, which just so happens is at the same time that he's meeting his people and he's meeting his crew, and they're an interesting collection of souls. He finds out that he has a big code inspection coming up for the first time ever, and that he absolutely has to pass, or everything's going to hell.
Okay, so when you write the follow-on books, because there's episodic stories can go either way.
Yep.
They can be rinse and repeat, where you end up with the character resets and it's just a new adventure. And others, throughout the course of the episodes, the plot evolves, the characters change. And neither are wrong. It just depends on what you're going for. Do you have an approach with this? Is the storyline going to evolve, or is it going to be just a series of standalone episodes?
So the characters are going to evolve. The storyline itself, it's set up to be where this space station is. There's a lot of weirdness happening. It's literally at the edge of the galaxy, and it's the few people that are there that are working there. They all have interesting backstories that are going to slowly unfold and come to the fore as the stories go on. But it's set up so that you're going to have like just kind of different weird events that are happening out here. Maybe sometimes they'll travel. But the basic idea is that gradually we're going to get to know these people. So it's Joey, who is the ne'er-do-well son, who is now forced to learn to be responsible and operate his this space station Halcyon. A manatid who is a anthropomorphic manatee named Daryl Pons. He's the main engineer. He's kind of keeping the whole place running because Joey hasn't done anything with it in the 20 years that he's owned it. And he's got an interesting backstory that it gets hinted at. That basically he's a pretty tough guy. You don't want to mess with him. There's a couple of what are called Kazids, who are they're basically space dwarves that run Pity's Old Time Sports Bar and Grill, which is the one of the worst restaurants in the galaxy. And then one of my favorite characters, the space station itself has a system intelligence. We would call it an AI, who she calls herself Hallie. And Hallie is the happiest, most wonderful, sweetest, and just energetic soul that ever existed. And nothing can go wrong, even when the space station is about to blow up. She's happy and she's finding the silver lining in it.
Well, it's not a bad thing to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, how many main characters are in this one?
So it's told from it's first person point of view. So it's told from Joey. We've got there's probably about 20 workers on the station, but the main ones, I'll give you a quick rundown of the cast. We have Hallie, of course, who's the system intelligence. We have Daryl Pons, the Manatid, who's the engineer, he's a tough guy. He's got a past. We've got Chef and Auntie Orlov, who are the Kazids who run the restaurant and who are just sort of good salt of the earth people. We have Mags, who's a fortune teller. She's kind of an emo sort of personality, but she can actually tell the future in little dribs and drabs. And then finally, there's this mysterious entity called Natalie. Natalie lives in the deep fryer in the kitchen of Space Station Halcyon, and she makes a big appearance at the very end, and she's something like best description would be like a Cthulhu kind of demonic entity that is somehow keeping everything running there. It's an eclectic group. It's Shakespearean in its diversity.
No, that's totally okay. So with those characters, are we going to continue to only get the main character's point of view, or are you going to mix it up and follow on books?
Nope, it will always be first person, told from Joey Moonby's point of view.
Okay. Is this one, like, how long has the humanity been to the stars in this one?
So one of the things about this, and I just to set readers' expectations, there is not a whiff of hard sci-fi in this whatsoever. I have zero scientific ability. I have even less mathematical ability. And so just go with it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's in the future. Space travel's a thing. Don't worry about how they're getting around or distance or physics or anything. It's just have fun.
Okay. So with the physics, do you at least make a nod to the laws, or do you just ignore it and have fun?
So I mean, you can't totally ignore it, but there are no explanations for anything, JR. None of the technology is explained. None of the technology is explained. None of the hey, how are these sectids living and how do they breed or any of that? No. I mean, if you want that, there's a lot of great writers out there who are writing they have lots of letters after their name. They're very scientific engineering types. Those are the guys you should be reading if you like that kind of thing. This is just about have fun with it.
So is this taking place entirely on the space station, or do you go out there more?
So this first one, it starts where Joey's getting the opening chapter is him. He's on a really seedy city planet. And he's gotten behind in his gambling debts. So he gets picked up there and transported to the station. 80% of the book, like 90%, most of the action is actually happening in Space Station Halcyon. But one of the things we learn about Space Station Halcyon is that actually Euclidean geometry and physics have been kind of bent and turned around a little bit because of this strange Natalie being that's living there. So things are always just kind of constantly moving around a little bit. Maps don't really do you much good. And if the accusation is made that, hey, Matt, you did that just because you don't want to have to actually draw out a final and stick to a map of a space station. That's a fair criticism, but it works. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. That it's sort of a kind of evolving set piece, but it always revolves around the same kind of places generally. The space station itself, it's in this really obscure system. It's circling a planet called Cold Fart. It's a giant ball of methane, and no one ever bothered to name it, so they named it CF. And that's where the action takes place. They'll probably, as the books go on, they'll probably leave for like little sojourns here and there, but there's not a lot around them. So the action's coming to them.
Okay. Is the space station like there to observe? Is it like a way station for travel? Is it like a truck stop kind of vibe?
You nailed it there. It's literally it's a pit stop between galaxies. So it's at the edge of this galaxy. There's a big void until you get to the next one. This is like the last pit stop. You can stop if you're leaving, or if you're arriving, you can stop there after a long trip.
Okay. Did you sketch out on your own a map in your head, or do you just swag it? Scientific wild guess.
Yes, that is correct. That
Okay.
I mean, yeah, just I'm a pantser, so that means like there's the plotters and the pantsers for people who like to write. I like to just kind of go with it. I have a beginning, I have an ending, maybe a couple scenes in mind, but mostly the thing just kind of evolves and unfolds, and then I go back and I got to spend forever editing. For this, I wanted it to be where the space station is kind of like a sandbox where you can, the borders are set, right? It's not getting any bigger, but you can always move stuff around. And that's kind of the idea with this place.
So is this what you would consider a slice of life kind of story, or are there overarching plots that are just told in a comedic way?
Oh no, definitely plot. Yeah, definitely plot. Although I will say Joey has a character arc. And it's actually endearing. He has problems with his father who has passed away. And part of his story arc is learning how to come to grips with that. Maybe he's kind of, he's a little douchey. He's not the nicest guy. And he's a serial gambler. I mean, he probably has a gambling addiction. But one of the things that comes through as the story goes on is that he starts to learn a little bit about himself, and about more about his father by the end of the book. So it does have some aspect of character development, and there's definitely a plot arc. I mean, there's the inciting event. He gets put in the space station. He's got to run it for the mob. There's a complication that gets thrown his way. There's a code inspector that's coming. This code inspector is like the Gestapo of code inspectors, and she has with her a giant enforcer bot that's like got multiple lasers and a cannon to enforce health codes. And the whole place is just one giant health code violation. So he's got to figure out a way to try to get around her and pass this inspection. And no spoilers, I'm not going to tell you whether he succeeds or how he succeeds. But it turns out to be a pretty wild ride, because there's a whole bunch of, there's laser fights. There's this appearance by Natalie. There's just crazy stuff that happens in the course of this, explosions galore, that he has to figure out, how on earth am I ever going to convince a government worker that this place is safe?
I'm just picturing you need at least one line in there. There's a disturbance in the OSHA. How do you put a lot of pop culture type jokes in there, or did you stay away from that?
there's a few I couldn't resist. I couldn't like there's one part where he has a flashback to he has a fondness for what him would be like very old movies. And they're all made up. Friday the 13th, it was all just a dream. Another one is a Krampus movie that he's remembering about, and all of these are made up. But yeah, there's some very distant kind of pop references that slip in there here and there.
Okay. Are there any secondary characters that you really, really like?
Ooh, Hallie. Hallie is just an awesome character. She has some great lines in it. Because just the unmitigated enthusiasm and optimism is maniacal. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. She's one of my favorites, and then Daryl Pons, the Manitude, who has this backstory that's going to kind of slowly come out. He's an interesting guy. He's pretty terse. Doesn't have a lot to say in it, but he has some real important role to play in terms of how the story plays out.
Okay. Is there anything we didn't ask you that you feel like we kind of have to go over before we wrap this puppy up?
No, other than it is an awesome book and an awesome cover, as you can tell there, and it was a lot of fun to write. And I think if you go into it just wanting some lighthearted entertainment, I think you're really going to like it.
Right now, I'm seeing it's an ebook in print. Is this going to come out in audiobook for those that read with their ears?
That is next on my to-do list. So this was something of a first for me, JR. I've had in the past, all my prior books have always been with publishers. So I've always worked with somebody else took care of all of the stuff, the formatting stuff. I just wrote the story. I'd hand it off and they'd do their magic and they would make it happen. I really wanted to do this soup to nuts, start to finish on my own. So this is my first attempt at putting out there Matt Lucas all the way, every part of it, and I'm really proud how it came out. I am looking into seeing about doing an audio recording to make this available, because I know a lot of folks like listening to books, and I'd love to make this available to them.
So in the dream world, who did you think's got the voice to dictate this for you? Like, this is just dreaming big.
Dreaming big, shoot for the stars. Patrick Warburton.
Okay. If I was writing a comedy book, I'd want the guy that did the beatbox voices in the old Police Academy.
Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know.
He was great in that, and then just nothing.
I think he's still doing the comedy circuit, but I don't know. But yeah, I could just imagine him, like, how hilarious he would be as an audiobook narrator.
Yeah, I mean, like, he could cover all the sound effects himself.
Yeah. So this is just a more general question as you as a reader. When you listen to audiobooks, do you ever listen, or do you prefer to read with your eyes?
I've prefer to read with my eyes, but every now and then I will try out an audiobook particularly if it's like a really, really, really long book, and one that like I may not get around to like actually reading and finishing. But if I keep it on, for my drive to and from work, I might get through it. And I'll tell you, I found a couple of them. It really does depend on the narrator, I think. But I found a couple where the narrator just really makes it come to life.
Okay. I was just wondering, because I know some people really like those sound effects, and others are like, no, just read me the words. Like, I don't want it to be an audio drama. I don't know if those audiences even overlap. I can appreciate both. A lot of times, though, they'll put the background music is so distracting and it overshadows the audio that it's just like, no, I want to hear the story.
Right.
But some sound effects I don't mind.
I think I would like it, like, I don't know necessarily sound effects, but definitely somebody that tries to put in different voices for different characters. and like really,
Oh, that's
really,
that's a given.
yeah. But I mean, like really leans into it and does a good job in it. To me, that's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So if people wanted to track you down on the wild, wild interwebs, where might they find you online?
Okay, so I maintain a website and under a blog that deals with things relating to publishing, writing, my newest stuff, sometimes college football, bagpipes, all sorts of fun stuff. That's at www.matthewclucas.com. That's 2 T's, matthewclucas.com.
Okay. Do you still play the pipes, or is that something?
Oh yeah, I do.
How did you get into that?
Just random. It was one of those things. Growing up, there was a guy in our church who played, and I was like, "This is awesome! I got to learn how to play this one day." And finally, when I was in my early 30s, I was finally making enough money I could afford to buy a set, and I found a local band, joined up, and learned how to play.
Yeah, having priced those, there's a reason certain instruments are like inherited one generation to the next. It's because they're so god dang expensive. Pipes are one of them, and that's those ones. It's like any woodwind instrument in general. If you're making it out of wood and not some machined knockoff, and when they get the machined knockoffs, they never sound right because you've got to drill the holes and then countersink the holes at just the right spot. And if you get it off by just like micrometers, like it will make the sound different, and then that's what it's supposed to. Which is of course means when you have someone who makes it the old way by hand. It's super expensive. We're talking thousands of dollars for a good set.
Yep.
So, and I don't even think there are that many people making pipes anymore. We used to have a guy in America that lived in Ohio, but he retired and went back to Scotland. That used to make pipes here. I played in college. I wanted to get back into it, and my great nephew has some hearing issues, so he's going to have to learn sign language at some point. And I'm like, well, I need to get my fingers limber because I've broken all of them. So I've got like arthritis issues in my hands. I'm like, well, piping makes your fingers limber. That's a good enough excuse as any to get back to playing. So I started pricing the actual pipes, and my goodness.
Yeah, no, it's absurd. Even if you do the totally unadorned, like no frills, basic just hunks of blackwood strung together. Yeah, no, I mean you're minimum $1,500-$1,600, bare minimum.
Yeah, and that's not for a set that you can adorn with some of the stuff that allows you to make your pipes match whatever band you're playing with. Because if you don't know, when people play the pipes, the bag cover over their pipes goes to match their kilt when they're playing. So. Anyway, all right. So if you want to follow him, his links will be in the show notes. And dear listener, you can follow us. Wait, hold on. I almost forgot. This is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. It really does matter. So do your part, people. And with that, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page, our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people save the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section this for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until they get high on their own supply. If you want some of that coffee brand coffee, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to remind you that these episodes aren't free to produce. So every penny you throw our way is greatly appreciated and helps us go from year to year covering our overhead, which is, I think we've told you guys before, it's a couple $100 every year. And we don't actually make anything from the sponsorships. Like if you see commercials on YouTube or whatever, we're not getting paid for that. And so unless you buy the coffee, we're not getting anything. And if you can, we appreciate it. Or if you want to just do a straight donation, we appreciate that too. And if you can't, just share the word with your friend, and that's good enough. We're doing it because we like it. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we're going to hit the end button. Thank you for coming on, Matt. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having me, JR.
And if anybody wonders about the rambling a little bit in the beginning between the two of us who are liberal arts type nerds, it really is Jana's fault for not being here and having a life because she's supposed to keep us on track. So it's her fault. And with that, we're going to hit the end button.